Welcome to Mirror Movement Monday. Today I'm excited to introduce to you Jen Theisen. She's the publisher and editor-in-chief of a local women's publication called 5 for Women, which, by the way, is an extraordinary publication that focuses on balancing 5 very important elements in our lives. So Jen, welcome.
Thank you.
So
Thank you for having me.
I'm so glad you could come. It's an honor to have you here today. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about the publication, 5 for Women. I understand you just celebrated your first year.
Yeah, we just celebrated our first year and we're growing, so it's very exciting.
Congratulations. We're going to talk a little bit about that before we get too far. Tell me, what led you to the decision to launch 5 for Women? And
5 for Women. 5 for Women stands for faith, family, friends, fitness, and finance, and really in that order. And what kind of led me to launching this magazine was kind of a process. My background, first of all, is in publishing and advertising, and so it's been something that I've always been passionate about. But I was a stay-at-home mom, and I was always kind of doing different things, event planning, and just different marketing things from home. Then I went back to work full-time with a pharmaceutical company, and it was crazy. We're trying to spend time with kids, and trying to find time for exercise, and trying to find time to, get to church and do all those things. And I distinctly remember sitting outside a doctor's office, and it was summer, and watching this little boy hanging onto his mom's hand and walk into the doctor's office, and I just said, things are just out of balance, and I need to, and I literally wrote down on a napkin what my 5 core beliefs were, and it was a faith, family, friends, fitness, and finance, and I said, I've got to get that back in balance. And so literally from that point, I reached out and I called some of the great women that I know, and I said, are you on board? I'm going to launch this. And with that, it just kind of started growing. And I knew it was probably going to be a magazine because that's kind of my background.
Sure. Wonderful. Very cool. So you told us what the 5 elements are. And how you selected those, actually.
Right.
So it just kind of came to you.
Yeah, it kind of came to me. And within that 5, every issue will focus on an article on each of those 5 core elements.
Sure.
Now, with the faith, it doesn't necessarily have to be my religion. It doesn't have to be, there's no specific religion. We've done articles on just meditation as a faith. We've done different things on different elements of faith and different elements of fitness, but we also include really cool, fabulous finds, just unique things that we find throughout the Chippewa Valley. Local artists are featured, and every time I feature a woman who is doing something great, whether it be raising her family, whether it be she's retired, giving back to the community, and we get her perspective on what her 5 is and what her thought process is. So it's really kind of a magazine that kind of covers all women generations, whether they're in college or whether they're grandmothers. So it's definitely a magazine that's, exactly.
But let's talk about each of those elements and what they mean to you. You touched briefly on the faith portion of it, that it's really, it doesn't have to be necessarily religion.
Right.
But, what do each of those mean to you? Obviously they're important to you because they came to you, and that's...
Sure. For me specifically, and I'm not speaking to any of my readers, and I don't push it on to my readers, but for me specifically, my faith is, I'm Catholic, and it's something every single day that I try to lead my life. Most recently, we adopted a child, and there was so much. I have 4 kids already, and so many people say, "Oh my gosh, you're so great! You did this." He was a baby that came to us out of a situation of foster care. I took him at birth, and it was supposed to be an emergency. And the entire way through, I just kept saying, this is really not in my hands. And it really was a faith-based decision. And so there's moments where I was like, I cannot do a newborn. My youngest is 7. And it really wasn't my choice. It was a faith choice. And I know that was sometimes challenging for me, but my faith is what tries to guide me in my daily life. There's days where it's out of balance. But that is what I try to guide me for myself personally. So that's why that is first for me. Everything, if that's in balance, seems like everything else seems to flow more evenly for me.
Which makes sense, and that's at the top of your list.
That's the top of my list, right. So if I can even spend a little bit of time each day on my faith and where I'm at, it seems to be a better day for everyone who's involved with me.
It's good for everybody.
Yes, yeah.
What about some of the other elements? Friends, family?
Well, family is the next component for me, and I think family is such a huge component. I have a large family, first of all. very large extended family. And I think when I think about family, everyone's at family, and yes, it's great to spend time with them. But for me, as busy as I am, I'm a working mom. I've got my new business started. But to truly be present, even if it's during that dinner time, when that's the time we have, put everything down and truly be really present. Even if it's just a short amount of time, let your husband or let your kids know that you are fully engaged with them. And there's been moments where I'm just like, you're multitasking, and I just have really slowed down and said, listen, for this amount of time, everything is down, and you've got my full attention. And I think that has been part of keeping that balance and letting go of some of that guilt of, I'm a working mom, and I'm trying to do this, I'm trying to do that. But when I'm with them, I try to be present. It doesn't always balance, but that's one of the goals of what the 5 is. That's a challenge I challenge myself as well as my readers in that family aspect.
So it's really more about the quality of the time.
Quality of the time, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And friends, there's nothing like my girlfriends. They've gotten me through some tough times, and they've gotten me through some really fun times. And I just think that women, if you don't, my sister went through a really difficult divorce and a really difficult time. And I remember a couple years before she got divorced, she didn't have a lot of girlfriends. I'm like, you need to go get yourself some girlfriends. I don't care what that looks like. You join some clubs, you do some things, because your girlfriends are such a part of who we are as women. And she did that, and a couple years later, unfortunately, she was going through a divorce, and it was those ladies that helped her rise up and get through a real difficult time. So I think sometimes our girlfriends can be our backbone when we're needing that.
Absolutely.
So definitely, I think that's got to be a key component. And again, I think part of the 5 balance is taking time for girlfriends and not apologizing for it. And I think sometimes as women, we say, oh my gosh, I can't do that. I can't. We need to, even if it's a walk with a girlfriend. I think sometimes that's important to do those things with
we
friends.
Need that connection.
Absolutely.
We absolutely need it.
Yeah.
So
that's a friends component.
Absolutely. Fitness.
For me, that is a huge part of my mental health and my daily routine. But for other of us, it doesn't necessarily mean, I'm not saying you have to get out and you have to, run a marathon or you have to run a race.
Which you do, by the way.
Which I do. I am a big believer for myself. It's just part of my daily routine. But we can get off the couch and we can do 15 minutes of stretching.
Right.
It can start small.
Right.
And I think what we have to challenge ourselves as women to do is take care of your mind and your body. And part of that is taking the time to, recharge your body. And you will have more energy by doing a little bit of exercise.
Yes.
Even 30 minutes a day, you don't have to do much, but do something to re-energize.
You're absolutely right. I've recently learned the value of that myself because
so
I never thought I would, but
right.
Absolutely.
It's just definitely an important piece, I think.
And then, oddly enough, your last one is finance.
Finance.
So.
I think so many, if you go around, and I've talked to several women who, what are some challenges? Financial problems or financial issues or financial, whatever it might be, get that in order, even in the small steps, because I think if you are worried about money or you have to, I just think for me, get your financial self in order, take some time to sit down with somebody if need be, get your husband on board. So many times, myself included, the financial piece of things can be such a strain and struggle and not needing to be. Not because you don't necessarily have enough money, but because you're trying to, where do we spend the money? How do we spend the money? What, 5 kids, where are we putting money for college and school? If you can kind of put that in place a little bit, again, I think it eliminates some of that strife that can come along with, that financial piece that obviously we need to have every single day, but not having it be such a huge component.
Definitely. Absolutely. So we talked a lot about balance and these 5 elements. And you yourself, you're a wife, a mother of 5. You have 5 kids.
Yes.
And an entrepreneur, starting your own business. So like many women, you are balancing several different roles, juggling a lot of different things. So how do you balance that 5 in your own life? How do you find that balance?
And I'll say to somebody, my 5 is not in balance today. And that's true. But I also have to realize it's something that we're striving for. I've had several women say, oh my gosh, I'm reading your magazine and then I'm trying to get myself in balance. The fact that we're even slowing down and thinking about that balance is the first step. I am busier than I've ever been in my life, but I feel more imbalanced than I've ever been in
It's
my
funny
life.
how
If
that
that
works.
makes sense.
It absolutely does.
So I just think it's a matter of taking that time to write down, evaluate what those 5 areas that you want to work on, and maybe just challenging yourself. Okay, this week I'm going to try to spend, when I'm present with the kids, the phone is going to be gone, and I'm just going to sit and be present with them, or I'm going to play a board game, or I'm going to take a walk with the kids. I mean, you can kind of kill 2 birds with one stone.
Right.
Or I'm going to read a book on religion. Maybe I've never chose to do that, but I'm going to read a book on philosophy or do something.
Right.
I think it's just a matter of taking time to slow down and instead of going on this race treadmill of life, and at the end of it, what have we accomplished, but just slowing down and trying to find out really what we're passionate about and how to, put that all together.
Absolutely.
So
of the 5,
Mm-hmm.
which for you is the most challenging to work into the balance?
That's a good question. I think, asking me what day of the week is it, it just kind of depends on what's going on. What I'm challenged with, before Christmas, what I was really challenged with a lot was fitness. As much as that's part of my life, because of everything going on, it was really challenging to try to find the time to get in what I wanted to get in. There's been moments where I felt like my faith is not where I need to be. I'm getting to Mass, I'm doing what I want to do, my weekly obligation, but I'm not spiritually where I wanted to be. So I think at different times there's been different aspects of that 5 that come in and out of balance. Ideally, I could have a little bit of each of them all the time, but I think right now, one of the things that one of the things I'm struggling with is just trying to find good quality family time with even my husband, and just finding that time to reconnect and reestablish.
So if you had to choose one that was, and I think I know the answer to this, but the one that's the most important to you.
It's hard to say, but obviously faith is my first one, so I really think that everything comes from that faith. So that's clearly, if I have that in check and I'm in square there, then I think the rest of the things are going to be easier for me to get in balance.
Right.
Makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. So this balancing act is obviously much more difficult than it sounds.
It is.
It looks good on paper, but
It
it's
looks
not
good
quite
on
as
paper.
easy to do.
Right.
As women, we often tend to take time and make time for everything else and everybody else, and we're
This is so
constantly.
true.
But we often forget to take time for ourselves. So how do we find that balance and still incorporate the time to focus on us? Or how would you?
In my last editorial, I spoke about that. One of and I didn't do New Year's resolutions. I did kind of New Year's challenges. Is
I
when
love that, by
when
the way.
I do something for myself to not feel guilty. So when I'm doing that 5, sometimes that faith portion is something I'm exclusively doing for myself. So I'm spending time by myself. And not feeling bad about it, or I'm getting on a quick flight to go see my sister for the weekend. That's something I'm doing for myself, but I'm also incorporating friendship time and family time into that, and then just kind of saying, listen, I'm going to do this, I'm going to feel good about it, and I'm going to come back, and I'm going to have more energy for all that I do for the rest of my family or my work or whatever. So it's really allowing myself to do something and not be guilty about it, which is a huge, hard thing for women to do.
Yes.
It's extremely difficult. I'm getting better at it, but it's something that I think that all of us as women are challenged with. Is when we're trying to work, we're guilty because we're working, then we're guilty when we're home, and and I just am trying to really remove that guilt piece. And so then when you're doing something to find time for yourself, you're not feeling so bad about it.
Well, because ultimately you need to take care of yourself first to be able to be there for everybody. That's kind of a vicious circle, but
Right. Yeah, because when I was working, I wasn't my true authentic self. I wasn't running. I wasn't doing the things I wasn't spending quality time with my kids. And so ultimately, what does that happen when you're out of balance? You're sharper, you're fighting more, you're probably spending more money than you need to be because you're just trying to find that, you're constantly running to try to keep up, and it just is not a balance. Without having that balance, things are just going to run more chaotic in your life.
Absolutely. So, what is your favorite thing to do that you do just for you?
I would probably say my runs are probably one of my favorite things to do, whether it be really early in the morning, you can get to see the sunrise, and the spring is probably one of my favorite things to do. and then getting done with my run and being able to have that quiet cup of coffee and just have that time by myself is probably one of my favorite things to do. Yeah.
So what advice would you give to women who are struggling to find the balance between faith, family, friends, fitness, and finance?
I think one of the things that I've talked to women about doing is don't look at it as all like, oh my gosh, faith, family, friends, fitness, finance. That sounds great, Jen, but there's no possibility I can get all of that. I would start by saying, take a journal, write down those 5 things and kind of what is your ideal and slowly work towards that. I mean, if it's something like, I want to get to spend more time with my family, slowly incorporate that each week. If it's faith, maybe do some exploration of what's important to you. Don't feel bad about not being in balance every single day. I mean, life happens and it keeps on going. And there's days where I just feel like, oh my gosh, this balancing, what are we talking about? There's no way. But I think that we need to every single day strive for that. And I think if we don't beat ourselves up in the process,
Right.
day by day it gets easier. And I think that's what I would encourage women to do, is just to take a deep breath and write it down. I even put little sticky notes on my mirror at
That's
home.
good.
You know what I mean? And just to
I like
remind
that.
myself,
Right.
this week I'm going to focus on this. And as crazy as it sounds, it really seems to help put things in perspective.
Wonderful. Very good. So anything else any last words or final advice for anybody that you can think of?
No,
Okay.
I think that's
Good. Well, thank you very much
Well,
for
thank you
coming
so
today.
much.
It's
I
nice to
appreciate
finally
it.
meet you.
Nice to
and
meet you as
so
well.
it's been fun. So
Oh,
I
very
love
good.
the magazine.
Oh,
so
that's great.
very
Thank you.
Absolutely. So if you live in the Chippewa Valley, and you can pick up a free copy of 5 for Women at any number of local businesses, and you can also view each publication online just by
Absolutely.
going to their website, which is 5forwomen.com. Or for a small investment, they can also purchase a subscription, which will be delivered right to your mailbox. And so definitely check it out. It's a great publication, a lot of good articles in there, and it's free, which makes it even better. So thanks everybody for joining us today at the Mirror Movement, where we're changing perspective one woman at a time.